Welcome, everyone. My name is Melinda Morgan. On behalf of Dave Hansen and myself, let me welcome you to our roundtable discussion, which is about, which is really an interactive conversation, and it's about developing common vocabularies for working in interdisciplinary teams. And if you joined us for the kickoff, you know that this is one of the really main elements of this whole 2-day symposium, which is how do we work together? How do we create conversations, and how can we work together most productively? So what we're going to be doing during these 45 minutes together is first, Dave and I are going to be just teeing it up a little bit with some basic concepts, talking about those challenges and providing you with some ideas and resources for how to do that work. And then we're going to be working together actually in teams. So we're going to be using breakout rooms. We're going to be talking about your own experiences. And we're going to be talking about ways we can develop those strategies and develop those common vocabularies. And then we're going to come back together and share what you developed yourselves in those breakout groups, and come up with some ideas, some suggestions, some things that we can take forward, perhaps to the larger symposium and to UNM more generally, and maybe take out into the world as we think about how to do better as we do our interdisciplinary work. So that's where we're going to be headed during these 45 minutes together. That's our agenda for our time together. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dave.
Great, thanks, Mindy. Now I get this to advance. Sorry. So the big question is where to start. And before I even talk about this slide, I will point out that I did pop in the slide or in the chat a link to a Jam board where we're going to work from when we're in our breakout groups, and we'll pop it in more again later. So where to start when you're trying to develop a common vocabulary? You know, our sort of thinking on this is it's really great to think about common interest, really kind of precede creating a common vocabulary, and you need to really learn about the interests of others. You know, we have a lightning lounge here on a regular basis, highlighting faculty's presentations, and the Faculty Research Development Office is a great resource for knowing what sort of research is going on campus. You know, the goal is, of course, to find common goals while we're here, and we really recommend that you focus on, you know, what you would enjoy doing. And so Melinda and I had our own start with this because we didn't know each other before. So I start with our example where a lawyer and a biologist walk into a bar, right? And really what we found from there is that resilience was our common ground. It was a surprise. I had no idea that she had done a lot of stuff in resilience, and I had just been working on proposals with other folks on the area of resilience, but it means a lot of different things. But as we wanted to get more of this process of knowing each other, we thought it was kind of fun afterwards to think, okay, well, what did we actually remember about each other, about common ground? And so we had a little fun exercise here to tell you guys about us. We went and chose an image for each other based on our memory, and wrote some notes of what we do. So, you know, Melinda got it right. I study photosynthesis and remember a lot of mosses. I don't do much boreal forest here. And then I've been getting a lot of interest in citizen and community science, and she didn't complain when I put this graphic here for environmental law and sustainability issues. So I think it was kind of a successful way for us to get grounded and remember what we were doing. But the other thing is, we want you to work in here is thinking about how we're going to go forward. Your thoughts on developing common vocabularies and things we can do at UNM to make that happen. And we think of really basic words like research. We think of that as very, you know, common, but after 10 years on the research policy committee with working with people across campus, you know, lots of different ideas about what that is, about if that's different from creative works or scholarship, and you know, when it isn't. And people don't agree over the 10 years of asking this question over and over again. And I just pulled out pictures here of things from UNM's websites, right? For examples of these kinds of things that we need to think about how to do these better. We actually need many more images and pictures of how we do stuff better on the websites. Interdisciplinary is another common word. It's easy to think of something like engineering versus biology, but there's a lot of interdisciplinary work from biology to biology, between molecular biology and ecology, very interdisciplinary, and I think we need some more thinking about that. Another area is resilience, and I'll turn that over to Melinda.
Yeah, so David mentioned earlier that this idea of resilience became a concept that when we met together for the first time to meet, really to talk about this talk, it became something that we were really able to connect around and talk about around a potential research proposal that he was working on, that they were going to maybe start framing their research proposal on resilience. And that's something, the concept of resilience thinking is something that I have found as a useful way of thinking about using as a way of talking with and framing discussions with interdisciplinary teams in the past. And resilience is something that is actually what we call in the literature a boundary object. And a boundary object can be anything from a map. So a map is, in a sense, almost like a literal boundary object, because it frames the temporal and the spatial way in which you conceptualize your thinking. And so a boundary object is basically anything that allows people from different social ways of thinking, social worlds, to be able to talk to each other. And in interdisciplinary teams, that can be really critical, because you literally use different epistemologies to come at a question. And that's a strength in interdisciplinary teams. You want to be able to come from different ways of knowing, but you also then have to become and think about a common way of knowing. And so resilience, and I would put sustainability also, I put in quotations here, as another boundary object. It has, for example, a 3 pillars model as a way of people tend to use as a way of coming together and thinking about environmental challenges. Social ecological systems is another way of framing and thinking about ecosystem services, as a way of framing and thinking about environmental challenges. That's my sort of wheelhouse, the way I think about things, that people tend to use to work across disciplines in order to create things. So you all may have your own types of boundary objects as a way of looking at the world. And it's an interesting thing to think about maybe your own vocabularies and maybe your own computer models, or your own theoretical concepts, other things that you might use as boundary objects, and how you might be able to use them to work across disciplines or in teams in that way. So with that kind of just sort of basic grounding, and what we'd like to do now is break you out into teams, and we have about 28 of you. So we want to break you into teams of around 5, and Carla is going to be helping us here. And what we're going to do is we're going to break you out into these teams. And so please keep track of the room number that you're in, because the Jamboard is designed by room number. So once you get put into the Jamboard, we're putting a link, I think already we've put that into the link to the Jamboard. Yep, thank you, David. Into the chat, and you will. So go ahead and click on that. So you're in the Jamboard, find your room number, and then you'll find your group of people in your group. What we want you to do is talk about your own experience about taking on interdisciplinary teams, working in groups, and what have been the challenges that you've faced. We want you to share your experiences. And then we want you to move pretty quickly into ways that you have maybe taken on those challenges in successful ways. So how can we help take on those challenges? And then come up with some specific strategy and recommendations that we can take forward. And when we think about recommendations, think about specifically who we can make those recommendations to. And by the way, these instructions are going to be in the Jamboard as well. So you don't need to necessarily have them memorized here. But when you think about who we want to make recommendations to, we don't just want to be making them to the UNM administration. We often think about the administration. They can only do so much. So be creative as you think about who we want to make recommendations to. Think about your fellow colleagues, think about funders, think about community partners and others that we might be able to work creatively with to better facilitate interdisciplinarity. And then make sure that you don't have to write down everything you come up with in the Jamboard, but make sure that you write down at least one recommendation or bullet out a few recommendations, because we're going to be coming back together for at least the last 10 to 15 minutes in the larger group. And then we're going to be pulling from you guys in the larger group and having a larger group discussion, and then documenting some of that and getting some of this captured so that we can carry it forward. Can we go ahead and go into larger group view to just see if there are any quick questions, David, before we kind of go and break out into groups? Let's just see who we've got here. Questions from anybody before we break you out into groups? Looks like we've lost people as we told them we were going to break them out into groups, but so maybe we don't have to do quite as many breakout groups, but
there's 3.
Okay, great.
Go ahead and start them, I guess.
Okay.
Great, let's do it. Welcome back, everyone. Dave, you want to take it away? You're muted.
I went ahead and copied some things off of the jam boards. There were just the 3 there, and I can put them. I can put those on this PowerPoint here. Let's see. Actually, I want to hear from the other guys, other groups first. Where I just pasted in a couple ideas. So maybe if you see an idea when I post it, you can chime in and say, "Hey, that was me." I'll tell you what I meant. So I see something here for developing classes or seminars. There are 2 sort of things related to that kind of stuff. What are people envisioning there? If you see it.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about that in our group, and really we were talking about kind of webinars or seminars for current researchers, for faculty, that are specifically designed to help them build terminology across disciplines. So for instance, introducing biology faculty to ECE terminology, or, kind of building that foundational knowledge within a second discipline. And then as a connection to that is also similar types of seminars that help faculty members start to build an understanding of how disciplines and multiple disciplines are tackling research internationally. So ecology research in the United States has a lot of similarity to ecology research around the world, but it has differences. So some seminars that help people kind of build an awareness of what those differences are from experts who do international ecology research, for instance.
There, I just try to add a little bit. And then what was the idea of what we all imagine to see for building on experience with people with multidisciplinary backgrounds?
Yeah, that was the one kind of as needed, introducing um, faculty researchers to, for instance, um, ecology research. So let's suppose that
Oh, I
you're a
see.
materials engineer and you want to get engaged in ecology research, but you don't know the foundational concepts to be able to communicate with other researchers. So seminars that introduce non-ecology researchers to ecology, for example.
Yeah, that kind of ties, I think somebody came up in our group on the second thing here, which is part of even getting out how to even find people inside and outside, right? And we were having issues across, and I saw many spots saying the Great Wall of Lomas and et cetera. I think this is that same, and a matching in Portal Hub is the same sort of idea. Stephanie, why don't you tell people about what this academic analytics is?
Sure, spread the word. So academic analytics is it's a tool that involve it. So other versions, like other companies that are in that line would be, I think InfoReady would be part of that line of companies that provide this kind of information. Dimensions does. I've had an opportunity to look at these different companies that prepare this kind of profile for faculty and enable like collaborations between faculty. So what it does is that it works with universities, but it also works across all universities in the United States, regardless of whether or not they have a cooperation with academic analytics, by pulling information from web pages. And they don't just do it through an algorithm, they also go in and they make sure to clean the data, they make sure to check the data. But what they're doing is they're pulling researchers' education, their professional experiences, their publications, their grant activity, their awards, and they're looking at the types of people that they're already collaborating with, but also the types of research that they could collaborate on with. And so it's a really great tool to be able to, one, generate a CV really easily. Like that's how I've been selling it to faculty, is that it would give you an opportunity to not only have this tool pull your information into one profile, but you would also be able to add information to it yourself in terms of books that may not be publicly accessible electronically, or chapters that you may have contributed to, professional presentations that you might have given, or fine arts or design that you may have that you may want to put on your CV as well. And so it's able to also use that information to then collect collaborators that may fit into your profile. And it's not only collaborators within your university, but also external to your university. So it's a pretty cool tool. It does come with a price. I've presented it as far up as Barbara Rodriguez in the provost's office, and then COVID hit, and I don't know what happened to the conversation after that, but it's a goal.
Well, great. Bill, do you want to take 1 minute and just say this, your bit on getting everyone on the same page, and then we can wrap it up?
Sure. Well, I think despite these unprecedented times, there's still no replacement for having face-to-face meetings. And, depending on the size of the team, I found it really useful to allow everyone 2, 3, 5 minutes to explain what they are bringing to the table and their perspectives on a particular challenge that you hope to address with the team. And then another thing is to call out anyone that uses an acronym or jargon and have them explain what that means. And after you do that several times, everyone sort of gets on the same page in terms of getting everything down to a common vocabulary that everyone can understand. So in a nutshell, that's it.
Great. Thank you. I know we will make this PowerPoint available and get it out to people. Melinda, anything else you want to wrap up with? Just to put you on the spot.
No, this has been a pleasure. I wish we had more time. We ended up with some great ideas in our group. I just hope everyone sort of takes with them some enthusiasm, just for being in the groups, that it's fun to meet new people. It's fun to work in teams. And we have got some great ideas here at UNM. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your symposium. And it's been really fun working with you, Dave.
Right, likewise. Thank you very much, everybody.